like 10. This is the United States, this is the United States. They killed Santa Claus with supply chain flaws. But if you live in reality, you always saw this happening. How could it go on? We're traveling reality like Judy Garland, Dorothy, on an afternoon when it all starts storming. This next decade will be far from boring. It won't be about stardom or glory. It's more about forging us a path and then fucking flooring.
Hey, what's up, J Chop?
Hey, what's up, bro?
Do you like the track?
I think it's good. You want to make a music video for it?
This episode is sponsored by LaCroix. Yes. So today we have an interview that's with Fatima, and she's running for this Assembly District 64. That's the Assembly District in California. It encompasses Carson, Compton, Rancho Dominguez, Willowbrook, and even a bit of Los Angeles and Long Beach. And so if you aren't very familiar with the State Assembly in California, it's the lower house in the California State Legislature. The Assembly has about 80 members, each representing one district, and they have about 450,000 constituents in each of those districts. So they represent a lot of people, right? And let's talk a little bit about Fatima's district, which is District 64 again. That's the one she's running for. 4 out of California's 15 oil refineries are in District 64, including the Marathon Refinery in Carson, which is the largest oil refinery on the West Coast. So these oil refineries, they're industrial plants where crude oil is processed into other oil-based products. The process is hazardous because it releases toxic chemicals and it contributes to significant air pollution. Carson has about 40% of residents that are immigrants and 70% are people of color. It's a part of a group of cities along the Port of Los Angeles. Those cities constitute the fossil fuel capital of the West Coast, where an estimated 4,100 people die prematurely every year due to air pollution. And that's according to the California Air Resources Board. In less than a 5-mile radius, there are 5 oil refineries and the 3rd largest system of oil and gas drilling in the country. And so I want to look at one specific example of how the current Assembly member, Mike Gibson, is not doing his job in terms of representing the people in that district. Let's look at SB 406, and that's Senate Bill 406. Okay, so you can look it up on ledge.info.legislature.ca.gov. You can actually go and look at the summaries of each bill and look at which member, how they voted on it, right? You can see if it passed, if it was chaptered and sent to the governor and signed. You can see if it became inactive or was vetoed by the governor, or did not pass either a committee or one of the houses, either the Senate or Assembly, right? But let's get back to SB 406, right? Because it was passed in October, but sure as hell not with Mike Gibson's help. It's going to help people in his area more than any other, and the bill is an important step in improving accountability for wells drilled in population centers. So it really just expands the list of people who can file a complaint, including those who live within a 1-mile radius, not just those who own land or operate in wells, as was permitted under the current law. That doesn't seem right, considering anybody who's 1 mile within one of these wells should be able to file a complaint. That seems like something that is just sounds like common sense, right? Well, Mike Gibson voted against this. And so we have to understand, why is Mike Gibson voting against certain bills? Now, SB 406 passed, but again, not with Mike Gibson's help. Well, let's see Mike Gibson's donations real quick. It looks like we have a few different numbers for Mike Gibson. We have $146,000 that he took from the pharmaceutical industry, $170,000 from the oil and gas industry, and $148,000 from the police. And of course, that's what we can account for on the internet. It would make sense then, if he got that much money, especially from the oil and gas industry, that he would vote against a common sense bill to help the people in his district, right? So that's what I'm talking about when I say that we need to vote for, and if we can't vote for her, at least support Fatima in this election. Fatima is a teacher, and she was endorsed this year by the Democratic Socialists of America, Ground Game LA, and the Sunrise Movement. She ran on a platform for Medicare for all, clean air and water in her district, and ending systematic racism. the majority of contributions to her campaign came from herself and other individuals, right? So this is somebody who is along the lines of a Bernie Sanders type of politician. She is, very involved in the grassroots. She has been an amazing ally to especially students, right? She started a engineering robotics program at the school that she worked at. And so she's deeply embedded within the community and knows their grievances. And Mike Gibson, I can't say the same about. So I want to just leave that there. We have this interview with her. I hope you enjoy it. And that's all I got.
Johnny, let's go!
Yeah. Welcome to the Far Left Show, we break it down, zooming through political news in the lockdown, talking to people, solving issues. These are the kinds of views you won't see on your news. Stick around the show, cause things could get crazy. We even have chihuahuas named Dougie and Daisy. We're called the Far Left to scare the neoliberals, but interview candidates from primary to general. We're the Far Left, break it down. Come and join us here and now. Johnny, Daisy, Natalie, Dougie, talk issues affecting this country. We're the Far Left, break it down. Come and join us here and now. Johnny, Daisy, Natalie, Dougie, talk issues starting now.
Here we are with Fatima, who is running to be an assembly member to represent AD 64. And Fatima, can you tell us what this area encompasses, as well as why you're planning on, or why you are running for this seat?
Yeah, so the area encompasses a lot of the South LA, South Central LA area, and a little bit of the South Bay. So it includes like Carson, Compton, Watts, Wilmington, Willowbrook, the North Harbor Gateway area, a little bit of North Long Beach, Wilmington. So yeah, it's pretty big, about 500,000 people. And yeah, like in a nutshell, why I'm running to represent this district is because, working as a teacher, as an organizer, especially in the issues of education and environmental justice, and just like, seeing the inaction, right, by the current assembly member is really what got me to run for office. I got to a point where, while I was organizing, I saw, folks in the community that have been organizing for decades, many community leaders, and, getting to a point where it's like, okay, well, what's going on, right? What's going on with all these issues? Because there are people in power that should be, acting, right? Acting on these urgent crises. And, Gibson, my opponent, has been on the city council. Even on the city council, he, didn't support a ban on fracking. He even now in the assembly, has a poor voting record, particularly on environmental justice and some other issues as well. And so, I decided to run because to me, like, these issues are urgent. They're really urgent. When you think about educational equity, 1 year in a child's life is really, really important, right? Whether it's a child just being born into this world or a student trying to go to college, right? Everything is so impactful in terms of access, opportunity, the way their brain is developing when they're younger. It's so important. And then in terms of like the climate crisis and environmental injustice, we just see what just happened with the oil spill, what happened with the earthquake at the refinery in my district that had like really dangerous, chemicals being spewed into the air. So a lot of these issues have been impacting us daily. And it is the result of like, failed policies, and it has created these communities that are subject to essentially systemic racism, right, and classism, it's just, to put it simply, it's immoral, right? And so that's why I decided to run, because he's been there, for many years, and I didn't strategically say I'm going to run for this seat or that seat. I ran because I got to a point where I was actually his commissioner briefly, and so I was more tied in, and I was like looking at his record. And it just wasn't okay. I was actually surprised when I found out, right? Because a lot of times we don't know our elected officials' voting records. And so when I found out, I just knew that there had to be a really people-centered voice in there, and that's why I decided to jump in the race.
Yeah. Something about the areas that you represent too that sticks out to me is I feel that a lot of people that live in those areas suffer from like environmental injustice.
Mhm.
I saw that like 4 out of 15 oil refineries in California are located in District 64. I've been to Carson quite a few times, and every time I drive in Carson, there's that huge refinery. I think it's called the Marathon Refinery. So can you explain like why are there so many refineries in this area?
Yeah, it is not by accident. Let me start by that, right? And this ties into, when we talk about redlining and gerrymandering, actually some of the conversations that are coming up now with redistricting. So it's tied into that. It's also tied into our dependence on oil, right? As a nation, as a state, in our communities, right? So one thing is, people always say on the other side, right? Oh, well, these refineries were there first, right? Or we need oil, right? We need oil. It runs our cars, or what have you, right? But the thing is this, right? To answer your question directly, if you think about, for example, a community like Wilmington that has like a really disproportionate amount of drilling active oil wells, inactive oil wells, which are still dangerous, obviously, and has its own refinery, right? What ends up happening is when people were trying to look for homes, they were literally denied in other places, right? And the only homes that were available were near these environmental hazards near freeways. So, redlining is a very real thing that happens and has happened in our nation's history, and that's why. But also that we have not really had bold policy leadership on a just transition, on what that should look like, on going away from our dependence on oil, right? Because honestly, at the end of the day, the oil's going to run out, even to the people that support oil. Like, it is a non-renewable source of energy, so it is not, it is not something we're going to be able to use, and it is impacting our health in our communities. And so that is also why we haven't really had bold, cohesive leadership, whether it's in the federal government, the state government, to really think about changing our grid so that we're not so dependent on oil.
Wow.
I guess this bill, AB 345, that was introduced by Mayor Suchi,
right?
That was a 2,500 foot setback. But when we're talking about like having renewable energy, this is sort of a halfway measure. I think it's just like us learning to live with oil. But also, right after the Huntington Beach oil spill, we've seen senators call for an end to offshore drilling. Would you, obviously, I think you would support these measures, but would you take it a step further in terms of legislation? What do you have in mind, at least for some of these bills?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we need is a comprehensive Green New Deal sort of bill that addresses all of these things, like in a comprehensive bill, right? I think the crisis is that urgent. We're already behind in terms of just global climate change, in terms of the biodiversity that we're losing, the fires we're having. We saw the Sequoia National Park, which the sequoias are one of the most, fire resistant sort of trees, right? But they are at threat. So we're at this real crisis. So I think, honestly, there's no time, for one bill after another, which is why partly why I'm running, is I want to see the work done to create a comprehensive bill, bring all the unions to the table, bring everyone to the table, the community groups, the leaders, and let's create this comprehensive bill. Let's build a coalition to get it done, right? So yes, to more directly answer your question though, you're right. The 2,500 foot buffer zone is like the bare minimum, and that couldn't even pass, which tells you about the state of our state legislature, and also, frankly, our governor, right? We need him to also, take some executive action and act on these issues, right? So yes, not only would I ban offshore drilling, I would ban all drilling, right? We should do nothing to promote a future where we're depending on oil. So we should ban all drilling. Yeah, but at the very least, I think the reason a lot of community environmental justice groups are talking about the buffer zone is because they're at least trying to get the minimal to, because this is affecting their health, right? I mean, every day they live near this, it's affecting their chances of getting cancer, nosebleeds, asthma. And so I think they're saying, like, they know that we're not going to be able to get this comprehensive thing done in the legislature right now, but let's at least get this buffer zone in so we can at least take care of our health. And in the short term, right? And it's still a short-term kind of thing, but it's something more immediate that should be able to get done, but even they couldn't get done, right? So one thing I would do when I'm up there is like, what I would do is, and I'm going to say this like because it just came to my mind, but I think this doesn't happen enough. Folks in the Democratic caucus up there don't call each other out. They don't bring votes to the floor because they want to hurt their colleagues. But you know what? Who's getting hurt when that doesn't happen, right? I'm not saying we need to get to the point where we're shaming legislators, but we need to call them out on what they're doing, right? If it's Gibson, if it's whoever it is, Hertzberg, that's blocking these votes, why is it just Sunrise that has to go do wake-up calls, right? Why aren't our legislators on the inside saying, you call yourself a Democrat, you call yourself like, this sort of person, but look how you voted, and I'm going to go to the press and the media since we try to talk and this didn't work and get it done. Put that inside pressure on them too, because they're too nice to each other up there, to be honest. Like, we need to have more folks stand on the side of the people, right? Rather than protecting their colleagues and not bringing bills to the floor, because that happens too. There's not enough support. They don't bring the bill to the floor. Why not? Why do they not put pressure on those committees, expose those legislators, those Democratic legislators that are blocking housing bills, environmental bills? Because you know what? Then it'll make a difference, because they will now be worried about their votes, right? The votes that they're going to get for their next election. And I'm proud of, I've seen this sort of happen with some of our legislators, like Alex Lee, Isaac Bryan, Ash Calder. They've done some calling out in terms of putting pressure, and I understand, like, they need to work with each other. I get it. Like, I know there's unfortunately, a lot of bullying that happens up there, which I hear of too, which is awful, and ageism. So, maybe it's really that bad, but I at least appreciate, the handful of legislators putting some pressure on, at least putting pressure on in terms of the issues that really need to be pushed, but not enough of them up there do that, right? They protect their colleagues, and that's not good.
I like this sweater. I hate this sweater.
Oh, good boy. Good boy. And look at
What the hell are you doing?
Look at her beautiful sweater.
Oh, but I do like these scratches.
Look at her face. Oh, beauty. Beauty.
I want scratches.
Beauty.
Would you say that the assembly, and this might be common knowledge, but I was still thinking about this, is it more progressive than, say, the Senate, because it may cost less to get into the assembly? I'm not 100% sure.
No, that's a great question. Actually, I think that the Senate, I know the Senate districts are bigger, so I'm assuming it takes more money to run for state Senate.
Yeah.
And this is really sad, but I heard that folks say that the assembly is where bills go to die. So apparently it's easier for things to pass the Senate, right? Bills can start in either house, but historically it's been said that it's better to start a bill in the Senate, which is why I think when when the neighborhood drilling bill, I think it's now the number slip because that was a bill before SB 467, but the 2,500 buffer zone bill didn't pass. They tried to introduce it in the Senate, but it also failed in the Senate, right? So, I mean, that's unfortunate, but I think the reason they tried to do that was they thought, well, it might be easier to try starting it in a different house, but that also didn't work, right? It was blocked in committee. So, I mean, in terms of running, I mean, I think that's a whole other question. I think like how much money it takes to run for office. But yeah, I mean, it's probably like near the same. I mean, my money, it's a lot of money. Like I have to raise about $500,000 for my primary, and then another $500,000 for the general is my goal if I want to send out mailers and things like that, and give my staff a living wage. And so, yeah, it's a lot of money. I think that could be a whole other interview or like a whole other question. I can expand on it, but I don't want to also like detract from your question. So,
well, just to put it, everyone donate to Fatima.
Yes,
okay, yes, people power donations. We definitely need those. So. Yeah. Please. And I'm really proud that we have over 1,000 donations already this campaign. And that's really powering it because our average donation is like 100 or even close to 100. It's not even super high. A lot of small donations under that too. We have some larger donations, but they're all individual and grassroots. And so, yes, please donate. It literally, I have a number I have to raise, every week. And it's really nerve-wracking when I can't get there. So please donate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this reminds me a lot of the Bernie Sanders campaign, and I saw that you were endorsed by him. So how did you get that endorsement?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story, actually, how I got that. Not many people ask me that. So, here's how it happened. Yeah, so I actually, it's weird how it happened. I was on a town hall in Vermont, actually, because like it was actually more Vermont's a super small state. Obviously, we know our darling Bernie Sanders is from Vermont, very small state, right? So they all like kind of know each other there, like even if you're running for office, right? And so I was on this town hall on environmental issues. So they had asked me to be on it because like I was like kind of talking a lot about the climate issues in my last campaign too. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go on it. And so through that, I got connected to some of the electeds, I guess, or candidates even too that were running that had gotten Bernie's endorsement. I just asked. That's what I always encourage, like grassroots, just ask, right? Don't feel bad about asking when you're a progressive candidate, especially more women need to hear this. We're always afraid to ask, right? We wait for someone to tell us, but we need to ask and take that first move. And so I asked, I said, hey, I want to get a Bernie endorsement. How do I get that? And so one of the candidates said, I met with him after, like, I'll help you, Fatima, because I know it's important to be, someone helped me get in the room where I got the endorsement. I'll help you get in the room. And so they connected me to like, I guess it's called Friends of Bernie Sanders that does their endorsements. And so I got connected to them and just, I was so sorry.
Okay.
That's my notifications on my phone, but I was also super persistent. So, they get a lot of requests, but I was persistent, but not annoying, right? So if I didn't hear back, I would email again. I would say, I want to do an update on my campaign. Like I made sure I was like in their face, like not annoyingly, but enough. And then towards the end, when I didn't hear back, I texted, like, I was super persistent with it. And then it came through. So like, I wanted to share that because yes, you have to, one lesson is you got to ask, right? And the second is you got to be persistent and have perseverance, right? That's really important. So
we're doing that.
I did both of those things.
Yeah, we're doing that too. I'm pretty sure I've DM'd Bernie multiple times to come on this show, so just stick it in there. I'm a huge fan. Check it out.
Wow. Okay. Look, I can see if I can make something happen, maybe. Although I also choose when I annoy him because I know right now he's like basically leading on getting the infrastructure bill passed. Yeah. So like I'm also timing wise, even for my own campaign, I'm like, I'm gonna wait a little bit.
Yeah.
But after they get that bill passed, Bernie will probably be relaxing a little bit.
Yeah.
You can ask him.
Yeah, I honestly would kind of almost feel bad if he was on the show. I'm like, you have so much more to do. But I wanted to ask because we were teachers in a past life, right? And we wanted to ask you I wrote a long question, but I think what I was trying to say is what are your thoughts on the growing number of charter schools in our area, as well as how that kind of is almost in opposition to UTLA? Like, what are your policies and perspectives on the education system here? Yeah, good question. I was just talking to like a local community group actually that's been doing activism. They're called Inner City Struggle in East LA. You heard of them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, awesome. Yeah. So, and we were talking about this. I think the divide has been charter versus public, and I think that shouldn't be the conversation we're having. Let me say this. I believe in a complete moratorium on charter schools and the privatization of education, right? Yes, that's there. But I think we need to be talking about increased funding, right, to our public schools. I think we need to be talking about like equitable funding. And like, I think it's tough, right? Because I support UTLA and everything like that. And, but I do think we have to have this is hard to say because there has to be a conversation though about like, because I love teachers, I do, but we have to make sure that we are also getting the best environment for our students. Mm-hmm. And this is fine balance between like protecting a teacher, but making sure we also, like in any job, hold them accountable to the best instruction, right, for our students. For me, for my campaign, I don't take any like charter school money. I'm a big believer in unions. I think if the charter schools that exist, like one thing I want to do is before we transition them out, I want to eventually transition our charter schools and bring them into the public school system. But in the meantime, I think there should be a law that says if you're a school, you should have your teachers be unionized. Because I've had a lot of like, you have to like kind of get unionized because I've heard a lot from teachers that don't work for a unionized school and just like pay issues and overworking and just stuff that happens like in any job. So I think that is really important that all charter schools are unionized. But I think it is important that, teachers have like UTLA and a powerful union. I just think we have to come up with it's funding, but it's also ensuring that we have the best environment for our students to be able to learn, especially in our local communities, right? Because when I think about like Watts, East LA, South LA, it starts from when they're young, right? I mean, we don't fund our pre-K. I think Newsom signed, in our budget, we have more funding now towards our pre-K, I'm pretty sure, but we just don't fund our schools, our public schools enough. Yeah. And then we have to think about, okay, well, now what is the best environment we can create to really make sure our kids excel and have access to everything? Because I know, one thing I did was I started a robotics team in Watts. My husband and I both big on the robotics scene. And I saw what that did, right? For example, for my students and inspiring them, all of them were first generation and they had somewhere to go after school and they were, they were their parents were why are they staying out late, right? And everything. But I told them they were doing something really positive. And so I think, but then you think about that, it's we don't even pay our teachers enough, right? I was able to do it because I was able to get some childcare from when I had to be with my team, or my husband was able to watch. I'm married. So I had these privileges, I have a partner who can watch my kid or something like that. And even our home, it's not just me, right? That's paying and stuff like that. So but I think about teachers and how much they get paid. And then I also feel we want our teachers to do more, but then we need to pay them more. We need to appreciate them more. And it's so I think we just have to in general put more value into our public school system from our teachers, our aides, our educators, and our students and our parents that are really important stakeholders. So I don't know if that was an answer, but I was trying to be, holistic in how I was trying to answer. I really supported, for example, Prop 15 that had really, because that's the whole thing too with since Prop 13 that really hurt our school. So I really think that, we need to look at taxing, property taxes for corporations, right, to get more funding to our schools. And I really believe in with UTLA believes, which is the community schools model, which is really important in making sure the school is an access point for students where every school has a psychologist. Parents are really important stakeholders and their voices are heard. All those things are really, really important, right? And also just the way I want to say we shouldn't be policing our students, but we are, right? We still have our students that are being policed, that are being randomly searched. That happened in my school that, are still getting way too many suspensions and way too many, expulsions and things like that, right? We need to go away from that model as well so that we keep our kids in school, we have the best environment for them, and we give them access to what comes after in their education, right? So that's why I also support tuition-free college, right? Because when I think about education, it starts when a child is born, and it starts it ends with that single mom or dad that is working and trying to go to college. The access points have to be open really everywhere, right? So
yeah. There's bills, there was a one for foster youth, and it said if they were 16, then they get this funding, and they get funding for
housing and for everything they need to go to college. Mm-hmm. And then there's a bill that hasn't been passed, but that's trying to lower the age to 13. Mm. And I often think, well, isn't it kind of arbitrary? I mean, it's not necessarily arbitrary, because if you move the age down, basically it's for eligibility. If the youth was homeless or in foster care at 16, then they would have this stuff paid for them. And the bill is to get them, if they were eligible at 13, then they would be able to get the funding. So it's there's a lot of bills, I feel in the Assembly and Senate that are just sort of moving the goalpost a little bit. And I think of course it helps people, but of course, we're the far left show. We want to get that goalpost and move it all the way so we can get everybody, into this. So it's not exclusive. But I want to also say, I'm kind of organizing some unions within charter schools on the low. And the main thing,
you're saying it publicly.
I know, on the low.
So not on the low anymore.
But the main thing that the main question I get from teachers is, what can a union do for me that I can't do for myself? And I often think that's a huge misconception, because I think a lot of times within charter schools, you want to get in well with the administration
so that they help you out. So it's kind of like an individualized thing. But no, it should be a thing where it's collectively, we're all looking out for each other and we all get like this equitable treatment and we're able to advocate for students. So I feel like it's sort of a misconception there with unions. And I know there's been like controversy, but I feel like we definitely need to keep educating about that because I think that's something that people have a lot of misconceptions about.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big supporter of unions because at the end of the day, like when you have more people together on one issue, you have more organized power, right? So even if that, I will just reiterate what you said, like even if like that one individual teacher, I don't know, I don't even, because I was always a unionized teacher, but I guess can negotiate certain things like that bargaining power from that individual teacher is not going to be as strong as if like 10 or 15 or 20 or not 50 teachers went, right? And so that can never be matched. And like, yeah, so I think definitely, I'm glad you're doing that organized because that's like, that would be like a bill I would want to pass, you know, as long as it fits under the legal framework of what we can do in California, is that kind of require every charter school that exists to either make it very easy to unionize or like require that they be unionized. So at least like the teachers there are protected because should it be that one special teacher that has the favorite relationship over the admin that's favored, right? All teachers should have that regardless of their circumstance or, you know, like maybe there's a single mom trying to work as a team. She doesn't have as much time to schmooze, but isn't her job important? Like, shouldn't we work together to support her, you know? So.
Exactly. That's such a good point.
Yeah.
I know we're at 5:30. So yeah, did you want to wrap it up?
Oh yeah, let me wrap it up. But
I can go for 5 or 10 more minutes if you want.
Oh,
sweet.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just wanted to make sure. So I guess I have a question then. When you're meeting with community members in the district that you're running for, have there been any like moments or issues that have stuck out with you that you think are telling of some of the things that are commonly experienced in AD 64?
Yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of things that are also commonly expressed in my district are all over, right? California, whether it's in Oakland or East LA or Boyle Heights or, you know, in Central California, right? Yeah, so definitely the first thing that comes to mind is, you know, just when I was canvassing and in Wilmington and the drilling is happening so close to homes that like I remember one time, this actually happened a couple of times, but I remember the first time it happened most vividly, right? Was that there was like, you know, a door was kind of propped open. I went to the door, I was knocking the door, but like the child was crawling and like opened the door and then the father came after. But the first image that came to my mind was, wow, this child is going to grow up and have a higher likelihood of asthma, nosebleeds, cancer. And it's like, they're so innocent. It's not their fault that they live here, right? It's the racist system of housing and our dependence on oil and who lives near there and things that is causing this child. So that was something really vivid. I have so many though times from when I was a teacher and just moments like you know, one of my students who didn't think he was bright enough to even apply to Stanford. And he was like one of the brightest kids in my class, but that kind of, you tell yourself when you're in Watts, right? That, oh, I don't see myself there. I don't like, you know, I don't, and it's like, yeah, just those moments of, you know, I'm having those moments with my students where they're like realizing that they have inspiration and that they are greater than what they might tell themselves, you know, those are really pivotal moments. And then like, what else? Like, there's just so many. I mean, I think every time, like I go to a door, like I've been canvassing today, I meet someone who's been incarcerated and came out recently. I remember in Compton and, you know, he was trying to figure out, you know, because our reentry services are really not the best as it could be in terms of finding housing, a job. And then it's hard to get a job when you have a record and things like that. And so just, you know, hearing those stories of someone who's just come out of prison and hearing them having to figure their life out, right? Those are things I hold close to my heart. That's why I really value canvassing, because I think the stories I hear when I'm intimately connecting with someone at the door or with my students and my robotics team, those are moments like I'll never forget. Like I'll end with this one last thing. I remember when our school was like, there was a development that was happening near our school and there was like signs all over the school that said, there's really high levels of lead, like be careful. And it's like, it was right when the kids were entering school. And I remember it's when I was running for office. So I was like, I had gone back for some sort of showcase and because I was mostly doing the campaign. And I was like, what's this? Like, why is the sign here? And then my student was like, oh, they were just laughing. They're like, oh, well, we're used to it. It's always been this way. Right. And like, it's just that, it's sad that like, and I was like, well, no, you don't have to live this way. You don't have, this is not okay. Like, and because it comes to the point where a lot of community members have lived with the toxic environment and the sort of education system that has invalidated them for so long that they've gotten used to it. And it's become part of the story that they accept in some cases, which is because it's like, well, our politicians are never going to do anything. So we just like, live with it. And they kind of laugh about it. Sometimes my students like laugh at it. I'm like, it's not funny, this is not normal, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is I like to get, well, it still could be involved in politics, but I like to ask you just like on a personal level, like, what do you like to do for fun? Whether that's, I know you have a kid, a husband, do you like just spending time with family, reading books, watching movies? Like what do you like to do?
Yeah. So what I like to do for fun is, I definitely have my shows I watch on Netflix. So like or like Hulu or whatever. Like I'm a big Bachelorette, like reality, not all reality TV, but like, I really love that show. It's like, like brainless shows that like, you don't really have to think.
Yeah.
And then it makes your life seem better. You're like, oh my God, people are so I was like, why is he or she doing that? Why are they doing that? Like, it's so embarrassing. Yeah, but it makes your life seem better. Even when you're going through something. Yeah. But I do have like, what show was I watching? Was this football show on Netflix? But anyway, I have these shows that I just love watching, and like then I get sad when it's over. So what do I watch now? So I definitely have my TV shows that I like. But I also like, I've always been an athlete too. So I was like state cross country champion in high school. I had like the 10K record in college. So I've always been like an athlete. So now like what I love is I do, and people are going to think I'm part of a cult because they think CrossFit is part of a cult, but we're not a cult, and like my gym doesn't really call itself CrossFit anymore. So it's technically just like, they're called Region X, but it used to be CrossFit. It's pretty much CrossFit. But I do like, getting my workout in the mornings when I can, because it just makes my day better. So I love like just staying fit, doing my workout just for myself, because it's my positive like endorphins kind of that I like getting in the day. And then my son, like, I mean, he's just like a breath of fresh air. Like whenever I'm feeling stressed, I'm like, this is what's stressing me out. And like, he'll just tell me something funny or profound or like, because I don't know, he's on the spectrum. And I feel like, kids in general have such wise things to say. Their perspective is so unique. One example really quick is like when Gibson sent out like a hit piece on me and like it had lies on it. And he's like, Mom, why is Gibson lying? Let's go to his house and tell him to stop lying. I'm like, oh, Aiden, I wish it was that simple.
Yeah.
Why is he lying about you, Mom? Maybe he doesn't know. Let's go tell him the truth.
City council made that illegal now, so we can't with the protesting and at a different representatives' houses.
No, my son was literally let's go knock on his door and tell him. He was actually telling me to like go talk to him. You know how kids have such an innocent view of the world, right? Like he was genuinely like, he's like, maybe he doesn't know, Mom. Let's go talk to him.
He gave such an incredible speech at your birthday party. And he's just so he was really cool. So I think it's amazing that you give him that space to also do his thing and get that sort of experience in front of people as well.
I'm not grooming him for office just because like even though he's good at it, like he's good at speaking, but like how did that even happen? Yeah, that was so interesting how like, and that was like all his words. The only words I did like add was just like some of the policy things in that one sentence. So but that's it, but all the other words were like hidden. And I know, of course I want because I grew up in I as many of us do, I mean, we live in a patriarchal sort of culture, and then we see like why our boys turn out more aggressive and are afraid to show their feelings, and why our girls don't want to like mess with robots or get into science, right? So I always like, I'm this like I feel like I try to be like the most radical mom I can be, like, and I'm like, my son never played with cars, never asked for cars. Because you think about it, why do we give certain gifts to certain kids? So my son, like, he's not into cars. A lot of boys are like into cars or dinosaurs. That's not my son. Like, he just found his own interests. And if he wanted a doll, if he wanted to paint his nails. Like I don't ever say no to anything. I let whatever he wants to do, I let him do, you know, like I'm really conscious of like those stereotypes or those like gender norms that people place on kids. And so I'm really proud of him because I think he's growing into a kid that is not afraid to show his emotions. Like he'll tell me the sweetest things. Sometimes he's like, Mom, I just want to marry you one day. I don't want to marry anyone else. And I'm like, Mom, you can't marry me. I'm your mom. Yeah. He's like, yeah. So you know, he's very loving and compassionate. And like, that's all I hope, right? I want our boys to be that way. I want them to grow up into men who are going to respect women and just respect our planet. And, you know, so I talked to him about a lot of issues. And when we go by Refineries, he's like, Mom, does Mike Gibson support that? He's like, yeah. And he'd be like, why does Mike Gibson support that? And I keep talking about money and politics. Like he knows about all that. He knows about Black Lives Matter. I've taken him to those protests. I think it's important. I think it's important that we raise our kids and are very real with them. You know, we're very, very real with them about what's happening in the world. We always think our kids won't understand it, but they do. Sometimes they understand it more than adults would.
Right.
Yep.
Honestly, that's how I feel. Yeah. I mean, I didn't get it. I mean, when he was young, I had kids books on him explaining climate change and atoms and things like that. Like since he was a baby. So yeah, sorry, I'm like really detouring. I'm just talking about my son. I could talk all day about my son.
No, I love that. 'Cause I think there's a lot of parents that feel like they have to preserve the childhood, which is like naive and not understanding the world so much. But I feel like that comes to a certain point where that you can't be that. You have to grow up and see reality at some point. And so if you start children young, then it's really ingrained in them to really see things as they are. So I think it's really
Can I share something? And this is might be kind of embarrassing, but I'm going to share it. The other day, my son asked me about like periods, you know, like how girls get. Yeah, and I told him why girls get a period. It happens once a month, and like actually boys have a cycle too. And like, you know, when you get to be a teenager, I told it to him in the way he can understand it, of course, like not, you know, but Jonathan, it made me think of that, right? Because I remember growing up, my mom didn't want me to know anything about that till I was almost a teenager. And she was like, no, I don't want you to see, you know. And so like, he asked me when he asked me questions, I don't want to lie to him. Right. So I'm honest to him about, you know, like, of course, at the level I think he can understand that. Right. But kids are smart. I mean, they get things, you know, and I always make sure to tell him that I was like, you know, there's some questions I need to just ask mom and dad, because I don't want him to go to school and like asking like his classmates, like in trouble. Right. So I'm always like, you can ask mom and dad anything, but like, you know, but because that's important, right? Because it's like, let's say he asked me like, oh mom, like what's like he asked me something about like he asked a period question, and if I don't tell him, he's gonna now grow up thinking that that's a shameful thing that women go through. And I don't want him to like grow up as a man thinking that, you know. So I don't know what sort of show this is turning into.
So good. This is so good. I think it's something.
Oh my god, what are we talking about here? Okay.
No, I think it's a topic.
You know, like.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, it's a topic that I don't think we've discussed on the show, but it should be discussed. I think it's really important because I always think about it as like the more people we can get to like pursue consciousness about the world, the better.
Yes, consciousness. That's exactly what it is.
Right. And I think it's so important to start with our own children, you know? So I think that's awesome that you're doing that, and it should be done more and talked about more. So
and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because if any mom sees this, because like I also, my husband's the same way too. Like we're very, very honest with Aiden, you know, whenever he asks us a question, you know, because it's important. Like you put it really well right now. It's that increasing that consciousness of how our world works, right? And then if we're conscious about it, then we're able to understand it, be more empathetic, and be inspired to raise kids that are going to be change makers, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, we tied it back. We tied it back.
Exactly. Well, I think that's all our questions. Thank you so much for joining us. This was such a great conversation. Yeah. And again, anyone watching, please donate. We'll definitely link it in the video where you can donate. And do you have like social media that you wanted to plug or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. So my social media is just Fatima FOR Assembly, Fatima for Assembly on Twitter. I'm with the number 4. Yeah, but yeah, please follow and please donate. We're also, canvassing. So if you're in like the local, SoCal area and you can come by for a canvas, please do. You can sign up on our website as well. So
awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh yeah, thank you to both of you for doing this, getting the word out on left policies that are just really good for people policies,
We got to come out there and knock on doors. Like I told you, I have family in Carson, so we'll go there.
Yeah.
We'll do it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah, and you love. Yeah. Oh, you have right. I remember you telling me that.
Yep.
Yes.
We'll stay in touch.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. And yeah,
bye.
I'll see you.